to be at this particular event, which is around the strategic imperative of data in research commercialization. Apollo has the main mandate of being a springboard for innovators to succeed. And innovation is not only limited to Silicon Valley or entrepreneurs that just want to start businesses. We want to see how researchers, how professors, how students can also partake, because the pie is big enough to go around and is not limited in size. It can actually be made bigger. And the importance of data in research commercialization can never be overemphasized. Data guides. Without data, you just be groping in the dark. So data guides whatever decision you're taking, and it helps you to benchmark what you're pursuing as a researcher, what you're pursuing as an institution, so that you take the right decisions and you arrive at the desired results. Research commercialization at this particular moment in our nation's history is very critical. Why do I say that? Because the federal government cannot cope. State governments too cannot cope in funding tertiary education, for example. And one way for tertiary institutions to generate revenue, to be self-sustaining, is through research commercialization. When you're able to translate research from the lab or from the shelf into the hands of consumers in the form of products or services, that will come with a lot of affluence for you. That will come with income for you, whether the researcher concerned or the institution concerned. And that's why what we're trying to do at Apollo, we believe will go a long way in disrupting tertiary education in Nigeria, in disrupting research. I was at the Raw Materials Research and Development Council the other time, and I met some directors. The organization has been in existence for almost 40 years, and they're struggling to commercialize research. It's not just about initiating it. Initiating the commercialization is the easier part of it. The difficult part of it is actually translating it, mass producing whatever outcome of research that has been produced. And Apollo is not oblivious, particularly the research department is not oblivious to the fact that translating research is not an easy task. It's expensive, it's complex, but we're ready for it and we're determined to succeed at it. And we're confident that we shall succeed. But data is going to be our guide for us to succeed at this noble task. I consider it noble because we see it as the savior of tertiary education and even the savior of research, because there's a lot of constraints in financing for research, either from government or from individuals. So if there's a breach, if there is a link between research, between higher institutions or tertiary institutions and industry, we believe that will do a lot of good to society, not only for the institutions, not only for the people directly concerned, but spin-outs will be generated. And when you have spin-offs or spin-outs, that will disrupt the entire economy, that will lead to economic growth and development. Nigerians are very hardworking people, we are ambitious, and there's nothing wrong with trying to improve your station in life if you're willing to pay the price. And Apollo is there to provide infrastructure, to provide mentorship, to provide financing, and everything that you may need as a researcher. And we're located in virtually all the geopolitical zones of Nigeria, whether in the Northeast, in the Northwest, in the North Central, in Southwest, which is home turf for us, in the Southeast, or in the South-South. And all this is the determination that our chief visionary, Dr. Shogun Ayino, has for the Nigerian mind to be made the most of. As our name connotes, Opolo is talking about brilliance, it's talking about intelligence, it's talking about sense. And all these things can be deployed to make Nigeria a better place. And then the opposite of JAPA will be happening because people are leaving Nigeria and for one reason or the other. But all these people will come back and Nigeria will be a greater country. So we have our able panelists, Professor Bright, Dr. Afolabi, and Mr. Dutun, who are up to the task. We look forward to incisive deliberations, and I'm sure that all of us will be better off after this particular event. Thank you so much, and God bless us all. Thank you, and God bless us all.
All right, thank you very much for that opening remark, Dr. Samson Simon. So now we have to share a little bit of background knowledge concerning the need for the webinar today. And I'm going to do that within 10 minutes. I should be done with that. So as Dr. Simon said, the title of the webinar is the strategic imperative of data for research commercialization, and it's being hosted by Opolo Global. So my name is Dr. Joy Folorunsho. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself earlier. As the facilitator of this event, I would like to take a few moments to provide you with some background knowledge on the importance of this webinar. So we all know that in today's rapidly evolving world, data has become a driving force behind innovation, behind economic growth, behind societal advancements. And it is often said that data is the new oil and this we actually with a good reason, because when we have our data, what we do with it determines the outcome and the success we get from it. So the availability of vast amounts of data coupled with advancements in technology has actually opened up new avenues for research, development, and commercialization. And we all know that research is the foundation upon which groundbreaking discoveries and innovation are built. So it is through research that we gain valuable insights into various domains, ranging from healthcare to energy to agriculture and even beyond. However, the true value of research lies in its ability to be translated into tangible solutions and products that benefits the society at large. And this is where data plays a pivotal role. Data in its raw form is actually like an untapped resources. It is through the analysis and interpretation of data that we unlock its potential. We in research, we always categorize data into two forms. It's either it is qualitative or it is quantitative. And we have two sources actually also. It's either it's from primary source or secondary source. So we'll be discussing everything today. So by harnessing the power of data, researchers can identify patterns, trends, and correlations that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. So these insights can lead to the development of novel technologies, services, and business models that address critical challenges and create new opportunities. Now to commercialization, because we have three important things we are discussing today. We are discussing data, we are discussing research, and we are discussing commercialization. Commercialization is way beyond just research. Commercialization refers to the process of transforming research outcomes into marketable products or services. It's like we are bridging the gap between the academia and the industry, and it actually requires a deep understanding of the market needs and consumer demands and then the competitive landscape. So again, data plays a crucial role even when we are to talk of commercialization of research. Data-driven insights enable researchers and entrepreneurs to make informed decisions through the commercialization process. Now, the commercialization from market analysis and customer segmentation to product development and pricing strategies, data provides the evidence-based foundation needed to mitigate risk and maximize chances of success. Therefore, by leveraging data effectively, we can increase the efficiency and effectiveness of research commercialization, thereby leading to creation of sustainable businesses and then eventually positive societal impacts. However, it is important to acknowledge that harnessing the power of data for research commercialization comes with its own challenges. The issue of data privacy, the issue of security, the issue of access to data, the issue of quality must all be carefully addressed. Also, ethical considerations such as ensuring the responsible use of data and protecting the rights and interests of individuals must also be taken into account. Furthermore, building the necessary data infrastructure and analytical capabilities requires investment in technology, it requires skill development, it requires also organizational support. This webinar therefore aims to shed light on these challenges and explore potential solutions. And in order to achieve this, we have brought together esteemed experts, researchers, and also entrepreneurs who have successfully navigated the data-driven landscape of research commercialization. Through their valuable insights and experiences, we are definitely going to equip you all with the knowledge and tools needed to harness the power of data and drive meaningful impacts. So as we embark on this journey together, let us embrace the transformative potential of data and work towards leveraging it to its fullest extent. I'm therefore confident that today's discussion will inspire and empower each one of us to become global innovators, solution developers, and entrepreneurs who can shape a better future. So once again, let me say you are all welcome to this enlightening webinar. Thank you very much. The next agenda on our program is the introduction of the presenters and the panelists. I'm also going to take that because I'm actually facilitating this webinar anyway. So we are going to introduce we have a presenter and we have some panelists also. So anyway, let me introduce everybody together. Firstly, we have Professor Erega. Professor Erega is a renowned scholar in the field of economics. He also serves as the director of PhD in management program at the Pan-Atlantic University in Lekki, Lagos. So with his extensive academic background, including being an international research fellow with the University of Economics in Vietnam and a visiting professor at CPIL University of Ibadan, Professor Erega brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table today. So his contribution to Nigeria's Agenda 2050 as the co-coordinator of the drafting committee exemplify his commitment to shaping the future of research and innovation. We are honored to have Professor Erega as one of our panelists today. Professor Erega, are you there? Please just say.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you very much for being with us here today.
You.
Good morning. Good morning, sir. Also next, we have Dr. Afolabi Olowokere. Dr. Afolabi Olowokere is the Managing Director and Chief Economist of Analyst Data Services and Resources. With a strong background in data analysis and economic research, Dr. Olowokere has made significant contributions to the field, and recently he successfully launched his nationally recognized book titled Nigeria in Figures, a socioeconomic data book. He's also a managing director, and he has played a pivotal role in leading his organization towards data-driven solutions for various industries. So his insights into practical applications of data in research commercialization will definitely enrich our knowledge of the topic at hand. Dr. Olowo Kere, good morning once again. Can you just say hello to us?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Doctor. It's nice having you here this morning. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Thank you. Lastly, we have Mr. Adedotun Sheyinbo, a private sector specialist and economist. Currently working with the World Bank, Mr. Sheyinbo's expertise lies in private sector development, local economic development policy, public financial management, and governance reforms. His experience as an economic competitiveness team lead for the development agenda for Western Nigeria, DAWN Commission, among other notable roles, demonstrates his commitment to fostering economic growth through effective policies and collaborations. We look forward to gaining valuable insights from Mr. Sheyinbo's expertise in leveraging data for research commercialization. Mr. Adedotun Sheyinbo, good morning once again.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here with us this morning. So as we embark on this seminar, I encourage every one of us to actively participate with our distinguished panelists. Let us feel free to ask questions, share our thoughts, participate in the discussion that will definitely broaden our knowledge and understanding on the imperative of data for research commercialization. Once again, I wish to extend my warm welcome to each and every one of us. Thank you for joining us today. So next on our agenda is a 30-minute presentation by Dr. Afolabi Olowo Kere. Dr. Olowo Kere, you have the floor now. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm sure I'm audible. Thanks for calling us, and big thanks and congratulations to Bokolo for bringing this together. And also our able moderator, thank you very much. So good morning, everyone. I'll be making my presentation just to kind of provide some background to the discussions by the panelists. I'll be speaking about strategic imperatives of data to drive research commercialization. And I won't probably touch on everything, but at least I'll touch on things that are very useful for us to move forward. My contents, I will look at data and information in terms of definition, relevance, and challenges and sources. I'll look at research, and I'll look at data business and some private players that we have there. I think the first two speakers said a lot of things about data. We need research to be able to do a lot of things that we require as a country or as a company or as individuals or as households. And data is very central to research.
Hello, doctor. Sorry.
Yes.
We need to hear you more audibly.
Okay. Maybe I need to speak up. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes, it sounds better now.
Okay, so I have to speak up. Okay,
Thank
so
you,
data is very important to us having a very good research that is useful. Without data, the kind of research that we will be doing, they may not be empirically based, and they may not be replicable. So data is very central. Data and information, we can say data is a collection of discrete values that convey information, describing quantity, quality, facts, statistics, other basic units of meaning, or simply sequence of symbols that may require further interpretation. Data can be anything. It can be anything, especially for us that are in tech world. These days, people do a lot of things on the natural language. They do a lot of things that are not structured databases, yet they are able to make meaningful conclusions from that. Disraeli said, as a general rule, the most successful man in life is the one who has the best information. And Einstein said, intelligence is not the ability to store information, but to know where to find it. So you don't necessarily have to know, you don't necessarily have to store all the information, but you need to know where to find information that may be required per time. Data is very central to research, investment, policy, planning, and general decision making. They are very useful. Poor data is the usual garbage in, garbage out, poor analysis and conclusion and poor reports. And then there is a knowledge of where to obtain specific data is very useful and time saving. Often as researchers or policymakers or as businesses, it can take us like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, sometimes at best 1 week to know the sources of data and then gather the data. But if you know where to get them, it can actually make things fast for us. There are a lot of challenges that we see in the use of data. Sometimes they are grossly unavailable, or they are available, but we don't have access to them. They may be available, we may have access to them, but they may not be readily be in a readily usable format. That's a very big issue that we have. And when the moderator was speaking, she said that we recently launched a book. Most of us that are on this panel, we actually work on that book in one form or the other. Nigeria has a lot of data, but they are scattered in different places, in different documents and reports, on the shelf of different persons, and they are in different formats that may not be usable for you or readily usable. They may be usable, but not readily usable. And you may require a lot of data transformation processes and before you can make meaningful conclusion or usage of such data. So bringing them together is one of the things that we have just done. We may also not be, data may be available, it may be accessible, it may be in readily usable formats, but we are not familiar with the available data sources. So somebody is looking for data in the oil and gas sector, he doesn't know where to find it, or somebody wants to know what Nigeria is growing, he doesn't know where to find it, or government wants to know how government is spending on buying newspapers alone all over the MDAs. He doesn't know where to find it. So it just says data is not available. It's not that data is not available, but we don't know where to. Data can be primary and secondary. Primary is that you are the person that collects data yourself. It's like you are buying a new car or a new shirt. While secondary is somebody has collected it, so you are buying a Tokumbo car or a cloth that has been worn by somebody before. So when it's primary, you can design it yourself. You can decide the way you want it to be. You can structure it in a particular format. But once it's secondary, somebody has collected it. You have to also cite the person. You have to make use of the person. By the way, if one data has been collected by someone and you extracted it from their document, it's still secondary information because they've collected it. You won't say, oh, because I did a lot of work in transforming, collecting, it then means that I'm the primary source. No, it depends. Somebody has collected it, no matter how raw or crude, it's secondary data to you. So primary can be done in surveys, interviews, observations, focus group discussions. While secondary can be what you get from institutions, and there are also private and commercial platforms that you can get a lot of data from. Many of them are readily available. When we look at global sources of data, we can look at them. Some of them can be like economic, some of them can be sectors. Economic in the sense that we have global organizations like the World Bank, IMF, United Nations that provide information for us on growth, on trade, on inflation, on exchange rates across the world, and things like that. When the sectors, we have information from organizations like WHO for health, FAO for agriculture, UNICEF for children, education, and things like that. So we can get information that are sectoral from them across countries and across time. Locally, the federal government of Nigeria is a very good source of data. There are many organizations there, DMO, CBN, MBS, NNPC, PENCOM, Security and Exchange Commission. All of them have one form of data, one data in one form or the other. and they can have very useful industry statistics, especially what happens into the industry that they regulate or that they try to develop. State governments are also useful sources of data on their websites, in their Ministry of Planning. Some of them have statistical yearbook in their Bureau of Statistics. Recently, we know that Nigeria has GDP for the country, but there's no GDP for many states. Some of the states themselves have the Bureau of Statistics that are collecting some of the data from them. Private, we also have data from private sector, and many of them have been aided by development technology space, and they've seen a lot of important traction, big traction in the center. Research. This is a scientific inquiry into a phenomenon to generate new knowledge. So when we do research, we probably are generating new knowledge, or we are validating an existing knowledge, or we are solving a problem. So research will be a scientific inquiry into a phenomenon, either to generate a new knowledge, validate an existing knowledge, or solve a problem. And it has to be done, that's the reason why it's systematic or scientific, through a systematic and orderly collection. We collect data, organization, we organize the data, and analysis of data or information, with the ultimate goal of making the findings useful in decision making. So data that we are manipulating, that we are organizing, that we are collecting, analyzing, we should have an ultimate goal of using the findings to aid decision making, whether to generate new knowledge, to validate an existing knowledge, or to solve a problem. Features, research should be systematic. It has to be structured in a specific way, such that it's replicable. It has to be objective. There are languages that are not used. You want to be as less biased as possible, if possible, totally unbiased and dispassionate. And it has to be empirical. Empirical doesn't mean that it has to be always quantitative. It can be qualitative, but it should be something that is evidence-based. And research can be basic research, applied research, policy research, and then we can have qualitative and quantitative research. Basic, the one that is often done in the university system, in academia. Applied, application of that basic to maybe to solve industry problem or particular problem. Policy research, which often can lean on basic and apply to aid the work of decision makers. And it can be qualitative and quantitative in the sense that we can go empirical using numbers, or we can use unstructured databases, as well as use interview discussions and the rest in text form, and then be able to make meaningful deductions from them. Research and policy analysis. Research is very important, but policy analysis is also very important. Most times, academic research focuses on constructing and testing theories for the purpose of understanding society, and they will use rigorous method to find the truth. Nothing is the truth, really. There's only one truth. In policy research, is a practice of trying to analyze the effect of public policies or projects already in place. So academic, you are always trying to look for the truth and shifting the frontier. But in policy research, that thing is already in place. You just want to analyze it to know the impact or the effects of policies. People do like cost-benefit analysis, for instance. When it now comes to policy analysis, which is a systematic comparison of policy alternatives to inform a decision with short-term window. Most times, some of us that are working with our bosses in different places, they don't have time for academic research. Often, they may not have time for policy research. They want what they can have now, and that would be policy analysis. So you can then learn from academic research, policy research, to write your policy analysis. Often, they deal with present public policy problems. They can synthesize academic and policy research to compare alternative public policy options. and project their impact for specific policy decision makers. And sometimes or often, they are housed directly within governments. The last part of my presentation is on data business and players. For data business, we need to create business out of data. In Nigeria or in many African countries, data are generated either by government institutions, thereby made available free of charge. Of course, there's no free lunch. There's an extent to which they can generate such, or with the support of international organizations. So sometimes you need data on Nigeria or Sierra Leone or Cape Verde. You have to resort to the World Bank, IMF, UNICEF, UNCTAD or UNSTAT, FAO, as well as maybe AFDB. But you cannot get the data domestically. However, if you look at a typical university in the US, for instance, or in the UK, as a student, you have access to several databases. So if you are in the university in the US, you have access to Bloomberg, the Thomson Reuters, Econ, you have access to Capital IQ, you have access to WRDS, Watson Research and Data Services, a number of databases that you have access to. But in Nigeria, you just have to be looking for the data here and there and start collecting it. And you spend most of your time collecting the data. What is different? In many of those societies, there are people that are called data vendors. Many of them are private institutions. Most of them are private institutions. They collect data from government, from private, warehouse them, turn them around, add value to them, and make them available to people. Not only do they give them raw data, they also turn the data around and make intelligence analysis in a way that people can directly consume them without necessarily going through the bulk or the garment of data that underline such analysis. So there is a big market in Africa for data vendors, for people that will provide data aggregator, and insight providers. So we can create data by collecting them ourselves. I try as much as possible to collect a lot of data that you may not think are available. I collect data from newspapers. I collect data from, I was just discussing with someone yesterday, we are planning to start collecting data from filling stations. So we collect data from everywhere. I collect data on frequency, on the kind of job opening, things that you may not assume that are relevant, but the day you will need it, you know that they are very relevant. Or the person that needs it will know that they are the most relevant thing at that particular time. So data is very important. So we can create data ourselves, we can generate it. And for us that are also in tech world, some of them can be data that are simulated. Quite a number of things that can be. People have, doing election with some of the guys are here, we are trying to collect data on what people are saying about different presidential aspirants and do some analysis around them and see whether they are positive or negative and which zone are they from. And we find some very interesting analysis that can help us predict things. So we can create data. Data may be created by others, but we can differentiate data in a way that, product differentiation, in a way that we have treated in a manner that is different from the raw that is on CBN website or DMO website or Security and Exchange Commission website or NNPC website or documents or Railway Corporation documents. So we can differentiate data in the way that people have access to them. Then we need to commercialize data. That is a very big thing. Who is going to buy it? We need to know. I was in a meeting, as I was saying yesterday, we're discussing, we have a particular survey we are collecting. And we are saying, who will need this data? We have to identify the markets and see how do we sell the data to them. Do they want it raw? In academics, they may want it raw because they want to do their regression analysis, they want to do their project analysis, they want to do their discriminant analysis, they want to do chi-square, pi, whatever analysis they want to do in analytical world. In government agencies, sometimes they want things that they are analyzed already. In businesses, they want a platform where they can do their own analysis, but within that particular platform and chart and correlate and do some kind of analysis. So we must understand our market segment that we are targeting and look at what are they looking for. We just said, people are looking for data into a particular book, and this is a new government. Why can't you do a book? So we try to commercialize some of the data that we have into a book and sell the book. It's a way of commercializing. In Nigeria, there are many sources of data and private players. I've mentioned public players, any of them are see them. Good sources of data for private, public companies, all of them have their financial reports. A lot of information on the financial reports of companies, they are likely PDF documents. Security exchanges in Nigeria, we have Nigerian Exchange Book, we used to call it NSC, but NGX, NASD, FMDQ, FX, NCX, Prime, Gezewa. There are many of them. They show trade data. How many people buy, how many people sell, bid-ask spread, price, volume, quantity, value. Those are in foreign investment and things like that. Shares outstanding, very important information. Financial market operators like banks, custodian, brokers, issuing houses, registrars, all of them have data that are very useful. Research firms like financial derivatives company like Bristol and Co, Economic Partnership, Kainosech, Brickfield Worship, PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, Nairametrics, even ADSR, everybody has data. Academic institutions, professors, many of them have enough data that they have collected over the years that are just lying there, and some of them are in student projects that can be commercialized. And there are also local data vendors. Recently, this operation is coming up. We have those like Global Tribe, Infoware, Apply Logic, and also ADSR. So these are players that we can see and make use of. Just to speak on something that I've just done recently on commercializing data. So we sat down and said, can't we bring all the data that we have from different places that people are looking for everywhere that we have collected over the years into a particular book and sell the book? So we call the book Nigeria in Figures, a Socioeconomic Data Book. It was launched on the 8th of June 2023 at Wilson Center in Lagos. And this is the cover page. What does it do? It examines Nigerian socioeconomic performance since 1999. So we look at socioeconomic performance of Nigeria on many indicators since 1999, so that we can know where we have been, where we were, how we got here, and where we are. Then we bring relevant data from multiple sources and format together into a single document. So multiple into a single document. We present in a comprehensive manner data at the national. So if you're looking for Nigerian data, it's there. Southwest, Southeast data is there, regional and state level, Oyo, Kaduna, Rivers, Kano, Osun, Ogun, all of them are there. Then we describe the development challenges and policy of different sectors, because we said people will look at data. The story behind the data, they must also know, so that can assist them to interpret the data. So we also wrote things around the development challenges and policy in different sectors before we show the data. We equally look at the relative performance of Nigeria against selected comparator countries. Why? It's not enough to know where we are. It's not enough to see how we have fared over the years. It's also very important to know how do we do relative to some countries that we want to be like Malaysia, Brazil, Indonesia, some of the developing countries, BRICS, for instance, and the MIT countries. We use simple charts, an attractive chart and illustration to aid the clear understanding of people. And then we provide detailed sources and description of the relevant data. And we provide insight on how to interpret the data, the figures, and the charts. So these are things that we did. And then in our book, I mean, I just show a sample content. This is just a page of the book. We will show these cards will show the most recent data for some of the platforms. This is the performance of bond market, performance of the over-the-counter market, performance of the unlisted security, performance of commodity market, and how Nigeria has compared with selected countries in terms of the market value of the bond market. So we show this, we'll put a short insight under, and I will tell you, many people love the book because they can, in a particular document, pick it and see all the information. We have also gone further to make sure there's an online version of the book. So when people buy the book, they have a code with which they can access an online version of the book. It's a web page I may later share the page for some of us. Some of them have free chats. Some of them, you must be a subscriber. So that if you are a buyer of the book, because some are saying, what of the book? If I buy the book and I'm not carrying around, without the carrying around any information, no problem. You can also use your code in the book to access an online platform that has exactly what you have in the book. So it's like a mobile book, both the hard copy. And our plan is to have the book every 4 years to coincide with the election in Nigeria. But the soft copy will always be updated online. But the hard copy will be printed every time. Hard copy is not what we want to print every time. So let us remember this. We need data and information to correctly capture the situation of things, to describe the past trend in performance, to set measurable and objective targets, to evaluate and cost resource needs, to monitor progress, to ensure consistency among our plans and strategies, to tie projects and programs to policy outcomes, to identify information gap and how it can be plugged, to leverage information for competitive edge and profitability. And then we need to get informed so that we can inform others. Thank you very much. And good morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olowokere, for that insightful presentation. Thank you very much. But before you go, I have a question, though there will be a panel discussion, because, okay, I've actually met with Dr. Olowokere before. That was when I was working with one of my lecturers then in the Department of Geography, Faculty of Social Sciences. Then I asked my boss, I said, this man is a doctor and is working on his own. How come? With my naive mind anyway. And she actually explained to me. So I think since then I understood what he's into. Now, I want to know your opinion on one of my perceptions concerning data. I believe that data is not cheap, because after you launched the book, I tried getting it online. And when I saw the price, I was like, wow, I know a lot must have gone into the compilation and eventual publication of the book. So what do you have to say concerning this my own perception that data is not cheap? Can it, maybe you can convince me otherwise that data is cheap? I just want you to say something about that.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, no, I think I can remember your face now. I didn't mean that. Good morning. Okay, so you are now very different. So I didn't know that it's you. I've met a lot of people too. Okay, so data is yeah, that's what I do. So data is what I do. Maybe when we met, we'll be several years ago. I guess it's probably maybe we are talking about something probably more than 7 years ago. 10. So it is what I do for maybe I would say in the last 15 years. That's what I do. Is data cheap? Data is cheap. Information is expensive. Or data is cheap, relevant information is expensive. So what I would say is that there are free data everywhere. Don't forget, I use that free cautiously because nothing is free. The free part is because nobody is charging you for the data, but you are paying with your time, with your energy, and with your money to transport and data to download and organize and maybe pay salaries in certain cases. So you spend money, time, resources. So let's just say resources. You spend resources to gather and arrange data, even when they are free. So it then depends on the value you place on the time, on your intellectual contribution, and some other things that make you to bring out the kind of information. For instance, let me give a good example. On the CBN website today, you can download Nigerian GDP from 1981. Nigerian GDP from 1981. Now, it won't take you more than 5 minutes to do. But do you know what? Some people pay me or pay my colleagues to buy that data. Why? Because one, they don't have the 5 minutes. Two, they think the one that I will download is better than the one they will download, even though it may not be correct. Three, they don't know where they will download it. So that is my value. So in this particular book that you mentioned, some of my colleagues that are here will later tell you, we actually started, whatever price we saw, we actually started with ×5 of that price before we go down to that low one that you probably saw. So we believe there is value in it. And lastly, I will say it depends on the target market. What some will pay 5,000 naira for, some will pay 5 million naira for. May we find the right market. Thank you.
All right, sir, thank you very much. So we all know that a price must be paid for us to get good information at hand so that eventually good outcomes can be made. So next on our program list is the panel discussion, and that will take us for the next 30 minutes. Professor Erega, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Can Dr. Lowokri stop sharing his screen? I'm here.
Okay. Dr. Lowokri, please unshare your screen. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dotun Sheyingbo, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I hope we all listened to the presentation by Dr. Olowokere. Now, we have some questions already. Okay, for the online participants, in case you have any question, please drop it in the chat box. Drop it in the chat box. All questions will be attended to. So during the presentation, I know we must have had 1 or 2 issues in our mind. So let's be free. We can use our virtual hands. When you raise up your hand, you'll be recognized. So Professor Erega, sorry about that. As a renowned economist and an expert in data-driven research, what role do you believe data plays in the commercialization of research? And how can data be leveraged to drive innovation and entrepreneurship?
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and good morning, Joy, for Dr. Joy, for the opportunity to speak to us there. I think Dr. Lowokre has said it all. The truth is that the world is looking for transformation, whether at the national level, regional level, global level, or at organizational level. Everyone is looking for, transformation, a better world, a better organization, meeting our goals and all of that. That is actually the target. But the truth is that transformation, comes from sustained progress over the years. Sustained progress means sustained growth, right? On the other way around, growth itself or sustained progress you expect in an organization rely more on what I call productivity. So if there are no productivity on the part of that organization or in that country, then you don't expect sustained progress, and that will lead to what we call transformation. But on the back end of productivity is an important variable, and that variable is basically called innovation. So your question is how data could help for innovation and all of that. So innovation and creativity is what drives productivity that will make nations, organizations, firms to have what we call sustained growth that will lead to them meeting their target and transformation, right? So, but the bedrock for innovation and creativity is research. And that is where research is very, very, very important. Research is the bedrock for that. Unfortunately, what drives research is data. So if you look at the transmission of my discussion, data is the bedrock. Data is like the foundation that helps research, and research is what leads to innovation. And innovation is what leads to growth, and then from there to transformation. So it then implies that data is very, very critical. Data in whatever form is very, very, very critical. Just that it's unfortunate that in this part of the world, we are struggling with having what I call credible data that is accessible. So data is very, very important, and research is very important. If you want to change the frontier of knowledge and drives product that will lead to nations' productivity, organization productivity, and the research is so critical, very, very, very critical. So then it implies that every organization, nation, or what it is should have some level of intelligent unit that drives research for productivity. And that for them to do that, they need to understand how to be able to make use of data and then apply this data by analysis. Like he has said, you can have data and might not have information, right? Because somebody can have access to the data and might not be able to understand the data and use it for the purpose for which you want to use it. So data is so critical. And today, in this part of the world like Nigeria, where we can have data mostly is by provided by the public places. Some few private places are doing their bits, and thank God for analysts, data resources, that's also one of them that is doing their bits to do that. But having access to credible data is one issue. And so one area for commercialization is in the area of, providing or making that value available for data as required by organizations, both in the public and private. And don't forget that research cut across not just in the academic space, but because most of when we think about research, we are thinking that it's more in the academic space. But research that is useful is beyond the academic space. It's a link between the academic and the industry. And that is why we talk about policy research, or what we call industry or industrially relevant research. And that is so critical. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Prof, for that insightful answer. We know that definitely it's a progressive step. If we want to transform anything, everything must still come from the data. Therefore, data is very important. You said we move from data to research to innovation, and therefore eventually to transformation. I want to believe that commercialization is also a component of this transformation, that is bringing the results of the research into limelight to what people can easily relate with. Mr. Dedotun Seyibo, sorry, your name, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well. Sorry about that.
It's fine.
Okay, thank you, sir. Well, with your expertise in local and local economic development policy and governance reforms, how do you feel the government and policy makers can create an enabling environment for data-driven research commercialization? Like, how can the government and policymakers create an enabling environment for research commercialization driven by data?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks once again for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks to Dr. Oluokere for that very insightful presentation on data, and for Professor Erega's contribution. Yeah, I think the question about how government can, stimulate an ecosystem that makes all of these things that Professor Erega mentioned, which is data to research, and then research commercialization leading to innovative products that then lead to transformation. There are a number of ways that government can One aspect of it is, I'd say, transparency of government information and data. Professor Herrera did mention that one important data source that can help researchers, to be able to, because you need to first know that there's data somewhere that's describing a problem. You need to know where to get that data. That data has to be out there. There are a lot of information that the government currently sits on. So one way I'd say is for government to improve how transparent, the manner in which they publish, some of this information. For example, you and I know that when we give birth to a child today, there is a way to collect the information. The National Population Census, I think, they have that, leaflet where they enter, all of those vital information of that newborn baby. But where do we have that information today? If you want to get that information today, very difficult for you to get. And those are very important information that researchers can take, can analyze, can glean insights or patterns from them that can then inform products. So government improving transparency would help. Then there are also a lot of areas that government can introduce legislations. For example, patenting, the legal framework for patenting in the country is not that encouraging for entrepreneurs. And I'm sure you must have seen some of the statistics out there. Nigeria ranks about 81 out of 132 countries on the Global Innovation Index, particularly on the indicator of patents by origin, 99th on PCT patents by origin. And these are worrying statistics. And this says that there's something wrong in our legislation, in the regulatory framework, in government's capacity to help, even innovators to be able to patent their intellectual property. Overall, building an ecosystem for knowledge creation in the country would really help a great deal. So that's second. Then the third one would be investment also in, research and development. Statistics or empirically, it's shown that top innovative countries are countries that spend significantly on research and development. And here you can mention the United States of America, mention China, Germany, Japan, South Korea. These are top innovative countries, and these countries spend significantly on research and development. In Nigeria, our research spending, as a ratio of GDP is significantly low. And all of this, impacts on the financial, the access, to resources for R&D by the universities, by our academic institutions and all that. So I'll just stop at those three areas that I believe government can do, can of course work on to spur the research, commercialization, data utilization ecosystem. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, sir. We know that we have to now improve our transparency mechanism in Nigeria. We must improve on our legal framework for patency and also invest more in R&D. So still the question still goes to you, Mr. Seimbo. How can organizations ensure ethical and responsible use of data in research commercialization?
So on ethical and responsible use of data, so first, I think for organizations, it's first important to really appreciate the effort that goes into data for any organization. And what do I mean by this? Take, for example, the Nigerian figures that Dr. Lowokere presented. When you see the data that were there were no data points that ADSR themselves created. Like Doctor was trying to say that a large part of that report is just trying to synthesize and process the data that you got. You got it from somewhere, and you would see that those data points were properly sourced. The references where those data were gotten from, were included. And that is an organization that first appreciates the effort of, organizations where this data actually comes from. I think it also boils down for ADSR to the organizational policies, right? So organizations need to put in place the right policies that helps them to acknowledge, proprietary rights to data. Unfortunately, private organizations do not prioritize all of this, particularly if you speak to heads of research departments in, say, some of these private organizations. What policies do you have to properly handle data or reference or ensure that you're using them for the right purposes? Many organizations do not have these policies, and I think they are very important to have them as part of, mandatory policy kits for every organization. The second part that I would speak on is how organizations also go about collecting personal identifiable information. Some data like ADSR that I have some knowledge about how they work, for example, they conduct surveys, and I know a lot of organizations conduct surveys. Many organizations do not, their policies do not also speak to how they are treating, personal identifiable information, of respondents or subjects when they go out to collect data. So I think one main point that I would say for private organizations and how they can is first know that data is a resource. Data is also, in a way, we see it as a public good, but is also generated by some organizations who have proprietary rights to them. It might be free. You may, get online and pick a data, but that doesn't mean that, it did not generate from someone and some efforts did not go into its generation. So it's first acknowledging that, and on the basis of that acknowledgement, organizations are then see the need to put in place the right policies to ensure that data handling are properly handled, data handling are properly done, and then when they go for surveys, when they go for maybe they're collecting information from individuals and all that, their policies also cover that. And when you have policy, the next phase of it is then enforcing those policies within the organization. So you then have mechanisms to ensure that staff members that err in adhering to some of these policies, they're identified and then they are properly reprimanded. Then the other last point that I also like to say is for organizations to also have processes for auditing their research products. So when we have research and departments often come up with products, many organizations do not have systems for auditing the process of handling data, of using that, they do not have those processes. As part of the framework, the organizational framework for ensuring ethical and responsible use of data, organizations should also consider having a process for auditing, the entire data usage, data collection, and data reporting. So I'll stop there for now. Those are my immediate thoughts on how to deal with that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adedotun, for that insightful answers. Now to Dr. Olowokere. I know you interact a lot with different sectors, especially in the academia. Can you share some examples of how data has been instrumental in driving research commercialization? Maybe you've witnessed how, maybe you were involved in how data was used in that commercialization process. Can you share some examples so that we can understand what it entails in practice, let us be practical about it now. Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. So for most of the academics, they will need data for, so academics will be teaching.
Please, sir, you need to speak up a little.
Okay, academics will be teaching community development and consulting. So when they teach, that one is not really commercialization. They say that you use that one to collect salary. But when academics do consultancy, for most of the consultancy work, they will be paid, and most of them will also require that they employ data. So you are an economist, for instance, you have been given a work by United Nations or DFID. You are in agriculture, you have been given, in Faculty of Agriculture, you have been given a work by FAO, or you are in health, or you are a medical doctor, or you are in UCH, you have been given a work by WHO to look at zoonosis or look at a particular disease outbreak or the pandemic. Definitely, part of your term of reference will show that you need to collect data, if at all, to even know how people are responding to treatments or how the disease is spreading in economics, how poverty is moving. So data will be collected, will be analyzed, and reports will be made to satisfy the objectives of that particular study. So in academics, data is very useful, especially when it comes to consultancy. So, and someone that is there who has knowledge of data will always get more work or better work. What do I mean? It doesn't mean that if you don't have knowledge of data, you won't get, but you also have to contract people that have the knowledge of data. So my experience, I think which you spoke to, is that I've seen a lot of professors, I've seen a lot of top academics, both local and foreign, who have used their experience and knowledge to get jobs. And one way or the other, they reached out to me to work with them on the data side. The point is that whether you are fully in the academics, your knowledge of data is very important for the kind of job you can attract and execute and be successful at. And if you're also not fully in academics, when academics also get jobs, require data, your knowledge and expertise and skills will also be very useful. So for most, for most of the work that academics have to do in consultancy, they need to collect data, they need to analyze data, and they need to write reports on data. So if you're in academics, such knowledge will give you an edge over your colleagues. If you're outside academics, you will also be able to work with some academics to do something. For a good example, Professor Brian and I are currently working on something for the federal government where we are doing some modeling, and then we use data to model the economy of the country and project what will happen in the next few years. That is commercialization, because at the end of the project, even if it is money to buy data, they will give us, and that's why we survive. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, sir. So, are there any emerging trends still on Dr. Olowokere's response? Are there any emerging trends or technologies that can facilitate this process? I mean, the process towards commercialization. Are there any emerging trends or technologies that can hasten the process?
Okay, so you see, when we are doing analysis and collecting data, the method we were taught, things have changed. And I try to encourage people coming to do more. But you know, there's a challenge. To do well, you must learn the old way and the new way. Then you will do well. But often people want to discard the old ways and then jump into the new way, and the background and the foundation is shaky.
Yes, Gen Z.
So the background is bad. So always, people like us will be relevant, even whatever we say. But emerging trend, definitely. People, I mean, before now, we only knew stuff of structured data. Data has to be structured. In fact, it was about late 90s or early 2000 that you started having things like NVivo and the rest that could analyze interviews. And those interviews, you have to listen to them, transcribe them, write them out, put them in the software, then inform the software what to be looking for and things like that. Before then, everything has to be quantitative. Qualitative will be analyzed by people with hand and then listening to the radio and then transcribe them and this kind of thing. But now, with big data, with Hadoop, with so many other things, people can analyze unstructured data. The fact that you can analyze unstructured data implies that there's less work to collecting data, to looking at the data, to studying pattern in data, to even reading the data. So with that is a lot of things that one can do in that area. Blockchain allows so many things. Blockchain technology, because you can, but in Africa, people want to use it to only make money and confirm financial transactions rather than use as a database. For instance, why would blockchain not be a major thing for land, smart contracts, for land allocation, and for custom? But Africans would like where you put money in Bitcoin, it will be settled and then you make money. But we also need to sit in the aspect where it can be a substitute to the traditional database system of Oracle and normal SQL. That is an emerging trend. In fact, it's not even just emerging trend. I can call it emerged trend. It has already emerged. So machine learning is there. Now, what I do that are repetitive, my machine can learn it and execute them on my behalf. There are things that I used to do that will take me hours. In the book that we just published, when we gave the work to some people to write out a summary of economic activities in each state of the country, 36 states, plus FCT, make it 37. We thought it would last for a week before they would do it. The guy that was doing it did it in a day. What? ChatGPT. So there are things that make work easier now. Unfortunately, they also make people lazier. If we can be as hardworking as we used to be, as we are supposed to be, rather, and we can learn this new emerging trend or emerged trend, we can then be producers of them rather than consumers of them. So commercialization, people can build platforms now. People can have access to more platforms where through that are interoperable, so interoperability issue. People can start having access because people now trade stocks on their phones, on their platforms. So it is easier to take the order book of people into a data set where you can then start making intelligence, study patterns or the kind of stocks to buy and there, because some of those things are done online. People do online payments. In the process of doing the online payment, there are other things you can do. So there are so many things that are happening now that people can leverage, gather information. Of course, if you are gathering information, and it's personal information, you have to be aware of NITDA, the data protection regulation and law. But they can gather the information and make do with the information. Look at Facebook, they are marketing companies and they are making a lot of money because they have data, they have information, and they are using artificial intelligence and the rest to train models, make predictions, and then they are going to be the most important even to win elections in the next few years. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. So, sir, are you for AI or you are against AI as regards, because you said it that machine learning is also there, but some of these processes, some of these things actually make researchers or people aiming at commercialization, it makes them more lazy. Are you for AI or you are against AI?
for and against.
Okay. All right. All right. Anyway, thank you very much. So, Professor Erega, now to you. I want you to advise us concerning how stakeholders can effectively collaborate to leverage data for economic impact. When I say stakeholders, I mean the academia, the industry, the governments. How can they effectively collaborate to leverage data for economic impact?
Okay, thank you so much once again. Collaboration. I think first, let me start by saying that over the years, something went wrong in the academia, in the sense that, let's say in the 80s or prior to 80s and even in the 90s, right? There is this synergy between the academia and the private sector. Vis-a-vis with even the industry, but along the line, we don't know what happened, and the institution lost that link that they had, and today we are almost struggling to have our feet in our relevance in research, data, and then helping government to come up with research that will help policy and drive policy. So for me, I think that first, government itself need to, understand that the progress they need to ensure. For instance, the current government just came up with what I call some policies that today are in discussion everywhere. One of them is subsidy removal. The second one is HND education, and then these tax reforms and some of these things that are coming up, right? If government understand the fact that to take these policies on board, we need to analyze the both sides, some kind of scenario analysis with regards to what will be the effect, and by understanding the effect also, what policy response that will be needed to be able to alleviate the effect and all of that. And all this can be done with the help of research, but to also do that, we also need data. An example is to say that, for instance, subsidy removal, I always make reference to this. Is it 2012 where Jonathan tried to remove subsidy and they came up with what's called the SHOP? Now, if we understand the power of data and research, that policy was introduced and somehow abandoned. We should be able to have some analysis about the progress that policy made, what are the challenges that policy faced, and then what can we learn from that, so that if we are going to implement similar policies of this sort, then how can those discussion around what has been done in the past begin to guide us? And that is why data is very, very critical. So until government comes to understand this part of historical data that we can learn from, because history will not lie, and we can learn from history by looking at the challenges we have faced, where we missed it, and what can we do. When government understand this perspective, then they will now begin to understand the power and the relevance of data. When that happens, then you now begin to see how we can trace ourselves back to who can assist in this area. So the truth is that government need to understand that they are users of research output. At the same time, the universities also need to now understand that what they are doing is relevant. One thing I will say here is that most times, I'm sorry to say, if you are in the academia or universities or something, most of the research that we do in the academia are mostly not that relevant. Mostly not that relevant. They are mostly for the purpose of, let's say, I'm looking for a promotion, or the university require that. Instead of doing for instance, starting from the topic, why do you need to do a research? The purpose is that I'm doing a research because I find out that something is unknown to me and I want to unravel what are the issues behind it. And when I'm able to know that, then I want to make it public. So publication is not the first thing. The first thing is to understand the dynamics behind what is happening. And then when I understand that and I inform myself, and then I want to inform the public. So if we drive research from that angle as universities, right, or as research institutes, where we organize our thought based on societal problem, whether in the industry, whether in government space or whatever it is, and there are different sectors of these issues, then that will help in making the government and industry to understand understand that, yes, we are relevant, and therefore, based on our research output, then we can have that call or that demand from both the government or from the industry side. So today, until we make that relevance available, then they will not see the need to demand our product. So my first point is that the universities, or what we call the research institute or institutions, need to change the trend of their research output and make them relevant and make them towards industrial, or what I call policy relevant purpose. And when that happens, their output will be out there for the demand, which is both the government and the industry. And that is one way. The second part of this also is that government need to know that whether in terms of policy implementation, policy need to be monitored, and to monitor these policies, you need data, and you need credible data. And to also do that, you also need some level of intelligence, and that is where research comes from. And if we can do that, then we need to not trace. But the reason why we have our universities, that there are centers that do these things, and then we need to now begin to what I call reach out to these universities and then make use of them. So when this synergy happens between government and what I call the universities or the institutions, then even the industry that is the other side of it will begin to see the usefulness of them coming to demand the same product and then make use of that. Let me end by saying that when you talk about data commercialization or research commercialization, there are two different things, right? One, there is difference between data commercialization, which a place like ADSR is doing, right? Which is that they can help you to get primary data, which is survey, but at the same time, if you need secondary data is available that you can't get, like you were saying, then they can also assist. That is data commercialization. But there are different organizations that are doing all of that. So, but on the other way around is research commercialization, which is coming from different angles. And one of them is the one that Dr. Folabi talked about, which has to do with the fact that, which is what we call consultancy, right? But beyond consultancy also, we can develop products that are problem solving in terms of doing our research to the point of being innovative and solve problems that then the world will be in demand for. In consultancy, on the other way around also, it's also possible that because we have been doing it from the angle of being useful with our product and our research, then we can now begin, organizations or several places now begin to demand what we are doing. And in some cases, some come to us to say, I have implemented a policy or an intervention. For instance, going to a community where there is cholera or somewhere something is happening, and then it give an intervention program, and then they want to know whether this program is effective or not. And then they will now need an expert that will help them to do that. So my point is that research commercialization, is from two sides. One is that we must do our research where our product can solve problem, right? Societal problem, whether industry or government. But at the same time, on the part of consultancies that we do also, we need to begin to fine-tune our research, personal individual research that is even for promotion, to the point where they are policy relevant. And in that way, both the industry and the government will see us. Even though I know that the government themselves need to understand that they need to now begin to see the need to reach out to universities and institutions and make use of them for their policy directions. Because if to take a policy, you need to test whether that policy is useful and what will be the impact before you now announce the policy. You can do several scenarios around it also. And that is why sometimes we need to now begin to reach out to institutions or research institutes that could help us to do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Now, coming from the angle of your involvement in the Nigeria's Agenda 2050 and the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, can you please tell us how research commercialization and the use of data contributes to national development goals?
Okay, fine. Unfortunately, unfortunately, yes. Let me start by first and foremost saying that, and I've said it in several fora to say, one major reasons why our development plans don't have the effect or don't succeed, let me put it that way, is because they are properly not guided by data and research. That is the truth. Most times they are almost like what I call visioning statement or visioning document than really a planning document. Because in planning, you by the time you envision where you want to be, then you now need to now take a step further to say, okay, what are my goals? Whether if it's a short-term plan, medium-term plan, or long-term plan, what are my goals? What do I want to achieve that will help me to get to that vision, right? And from the goals, you need to set a baseline. And then having a baseline, we now need to say, okay, this is where I am. But based on my goal, this is the key performing indicator that can help me to reach that goal, which is measurable. And then you set a target, right? So you have a baseline, you have a target. Then the next step is to say, what activities or what will I do to be able to move from my baseline to get to my target? That is what planning is about. And when you are able to establish that, there are projects that will help you to achieve that, project that will be tied to those strategies. And then you need to cost this project and then look at sometimes you also need to do some forecasting to say, this is where growth is going, interest rate is going, inflation is going. And then in your costing of project also, you also look at project from viability, risk, and several other things, and then determine this project before you now go ahead to finalize the plan. This is actually the process that it should be. But most times in our current planning processes, what you have is kind of planning that has to do with designing a vision, get the goals, and most times we struggle around, setting measurable baseline and target for our goals. One reason is because we lack credible data. We don't have very credible data to do that. That's one major problem we have. On the other hand, even when we have credible data, we then need to understand how to be able to analyze this data in the current situation and forecast where we want to be. So all of this involves serious thinking and serious analysis, right? And this has been the trend over time until we got to the National Development Plan, where we now sat down to say, no, we cannot be having planning in this form where our plans look like a wish than setting the tone for us to get to where we want to get to. And that's why in the National Development Plan, if you take that document and look at it, one of the things we have done is to say, okay, this is the vision, these are the goals, sector by sector. This is a baseline. In 5 years' time, based on this baseline, what do you want to be? So if our growth is 3%, in 5 years' time, we want to have a growth of 6%. How do we get that? We develop strategies for that. So all of this involves data. You need data to set the baseline. You also need data to set the target. Sometimes the target can be guided by, for instance, in National Development Plan, we did the macro model that we used to do the forecasting for 5 years. But sometimes you can also look at a benchmark. Countries that have passed through that path, how did they get there, right? In 5 years, what are the things? Because sometimes within the 5 years, you have some constraints, right? Because you are not that elastic to be able to move from a 2% growth to, let's say, 10%. It's not possible, and it's not going to be realized. So you also look at a benchmark with countries to say, this is how they have passed through the same process, countries that have been in the kind of experience we have, based on their constraints and binding limitations, and then be able to use that as a guide to be able to do your forecast to say, this is where you want to be by number. So my point is that data is critical. Now, when we're doing the National Development Plan, one thing we did was that we had a debt from the NBS. In fact, NBS team was seated with us somewhere. But along the line, also, NBS also had limitation because they don't have data in historical form. Their data is at a point in time, and then they are in reports that then they put them somewhere. So one of the efforts was made by me and Dr. Folabi himself. We sat down and began to look at different sources that are available, and also knowing fully whether ADXR is also into data. So we make use of all of this available listing to see that. In fact, some of the people who are working with us, we have to even be the one to sometimes, especially for the National Development Plan, those who are not really data driven, help them to source for data, get data, be able to use this data for both the baseline and what I call the target. So don't forget that it's a government document. So sometimes you're also very careful about the kind of data you are looking for. You can't just look for data anywhere, because it has to be credible, it has to be acceptable by government. Because when the plan is accepted by the president and signed by the president or launched by the president, it becomes government voice. So government cannot, and anything in it become government property. So government cannot use a data that is not credible. Government cannot use a data that is falsified or something. So that is one that is how we're able to go through that route of the National Development Plan and vis-a-vis into what we call the Agenda 2050. So Data is critical, and NBS was the major source, but even at that, we make use of several other sources. Okay, so there is a niche for data in terms of commercialization, right? And that is why a place like the ADSRA is now available to do that. So there is a niche for that. But beyond that, also there's also a niche for research in terms of commercialization, because we needed people who can think through the data, who can do the analysis of this data, and then be going to give us a informed decision on where we should be based on baseline and several other things that are being considered. So there is, on both sides, data commercialization or data niche is there, and at the same time, the area of understanding the use of this data by different fora to analyze it, to be able to write some of this plan is also a gap that is available. So both sides of this are available, and even up till now, even though we made several efforts for both the National Development Plan and the Agenda 2050, similar projects and similar policies will come. One of them is several of these policies already coming up by this government, and this need will still arise. So it's available, the commercialization or the need for this for data and research as a gap is always in demand, both by government and even for the industry. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Now we know that data cannot just be boycotted for any reason, even for National Development Plan and every other thing as per the Nigeria's Agenda 2050. Now to the online participants, I want people to ask the panelists whatever question they have in their mind. I know we have researchers there that are working towards the commercialization of research, because that is one of the core mandates of Opolo Global. We commercialize research. So researchers in the house, please, this is your time. Ask questions. They are here to answer you, so that at the end of the whole thing, you won't start saying that, I will have asked this question to ease my work. Dr. Samson, Dr. Ikuda Isi, Dr. Nike, Dr. Femi, you know, commercialization of research is one of your major KPI. Now is the time to ask them questions. Let them make the work easier for you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Joy, for yielding the floor to us. It has been incisive. It has been enlightening. We're happy that we have done, and we're still doing this webinar. Thank you, Professor Bright. I prefer using the Bright because I don't want to mispronounce your name. The same thing for Dr. Afalabi. Afalabi is easier than the Oluwo Kere and Dotuntu. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My question is like this. The history of research commercialization in Nigeria, in my view, has largely not been a storied one. It has not really been something that we can thumb our chest and say, yes, Nigeria has really fared well. I don't think so. In fact, far from it. What do you think is the reason for our performance being this bad, if I'll be explicit? And which model do you think we can actually borrow and maybe replicate here with some adaptation, of course, because we cannot borrow a model, let's say from Israel. I was reading a story that Israel has the best return on investment when it comes to research commercialization. So if we're borrowing from Israel, or maybe Israel is a bit different from Nigeria, let's say we're borrowing from India or another country that has been more successful than us that we can learn from. Which model do you think will be the best for us to adopt here in Nigeria, and why? I hope my question is clear. Thank you.
Dr. Samson, who did you direct your question to?
I was just about to say it to all of the panelists. I want to pick their brain on this. Thank you.
Professor Bai, do you want to go first or should I go?
Dr. Olowokere, you can go first. You have the floor.
Okay, so thank you. I don't know whether I have answer, but let's so that we talk. If we look at potential buyers of our research, there are many, but we can look at three broad categories. Let's say government, private sector, or let's say industry, and then international organizations. Government, industry, and international organizations. The kind of research that we do, nobody wants to say, I don't want to, I know academics are here. Sometimes you need to do an industry or policy relevant research. So academic research have to shift frontier of knowledge. So when we're doing PhD, for instance, I used to have a professor that would say, your PhD work doesn't need to have a policy recommendation, or it doesn't have to have an objective to make recommendation for policymaker, because this is purely academic exercise. You have to contribute to theory and then some practice or some empirical work, and you have to shift frontier of knowledge. Fine. I mean, that's pure scientific academic research. That's very useful for knowledge. So transitioning from that to what the industry needs, transitioning from that to what policymakers need, and transitioning from that to what international organizations need. That is where the issues are often. So what normally happens in academia is that there's a big professor, there's somebody who knows somebody somewhere, he's able to get the job, then he share it to the boys, you know. Other people are busy writing academic papers, and we are getting our promotion as at when due, and we are becoming professors and being produced. I don't want to say mass produced, and they're being produced in that way, which is fine. What we then need to start looking at in terms of model, which I've thought about, is that in a particular department of an institution, the lecturers there or the academics there, they have their fields of interest. It may be good to start engaging with the relevant private, public, and international organizations that are also in that field. If, for instance, my postgraduate students, so I was in a particular meeting, maybe I currently teach a course called Features and Derivatives. And if I have my students follow me to a place I was like yesterday, where they were discussing commodities and futures, they will learn better and see the practicality of what they are being taught in class. They will see real life problems, and they will mix it with their academic knowledge, and they will start thinking, why can't we solve this problem this way? So maybe before we finish producing the doctors, this kind of exposure may be relevant. If I'm in statistics and I have a very cordial relationship with the National Bureau of Statistics, there can be people going there when they're having conferences. They can also come here. We can start interacting, and the kind of issues that they are considering, we can start helping them to consider them, even though at the start, they will tell us that our recommendations are not relevant. They are too academic. They are this, they are that. But with time, we will be humble. Please, let's underline that. We will be humbled to listen and know that people that are now in industry and government who were not the best students when they were in school, know some other things that we possibly don't know. Learn from them, their ways, and the way they reason and think on things, and then come back, remodel, and then we can start seeing improvement. That is the kind of model that I think will work, among other ones, and my colleagues will speak. Thank you.
Okay. Once again, thank you. Let me speak from two angles, one from individual and then one from a research institute like maybe yours, Apollo Global. So for individual, I think Dr. Falabi has spoken more about that, which is that mostly all of us are from the academics and probably to get a job done, professor is the one that is there. He has the link, get the work, and then others begin to do it. Now, for beyond that professor, most other ones will just be, doing their normal research for publications that are for promotion and all of that. So let me give one or two guides for individual, what they can do around that. One is networking. Networking is so powerful and it will help individuals. So if you want to break out from that cobweb of it is when the professor brings the work that you can be, by the time you are done, in fact, most times you'll be used as an errand boy, right? By the time you are done with that errand boy, you get a 20,000, a 50,000, something that is a peanut, right? Yes, it's good. You can learn from that process to learn what they are doing, because it's also a mentorship process that you are learning. But you need proper networking, and networking takes place from different fora, attending conferences, attending seminars. For instance, if this meeting is physical, one thing the industry guys have done is that anywhere they go with their what do we call it now? What we call contact card, or what we call it. So anywhere they go, they distribute their card to say, in fact, when they see people, they walk up to them to say, hello, how are you? And they greet you and they give you their card. And when they get home, because they are business oriented, they will reach out to you. Mostly people in academic are either shy to do that, or they don't even go there with their business card to distribute. And even at the end of the program, they collect somebody's card, they hide the card under table, and that is the end. They don't reach out to these people. So if you are a business-oriented person that know the power of networking, when you go to seminar, go to conferences, you have an opportunity to go to a place like the one Dr. Falabi is saying yesterday, where he was in a program, and you get people contact. When you get to, because I don't know whether I can use a proverb. It is when it's still hot that people will still know that you are there. So when you get to, send them a message. I'm just a person that just collected your card and all of that, and then make that network to be there. Spur it, and then from there you never can tell what will happen. And from there, what you are doing, you can make known to them what you are doing going forward. And I am sure that in doing that, somebody will reach out to you. So networking is number one thing. The second thing is also beyond networking is mentorship. Mentorship is also very powerful, very key. It's just like this part of the world, the kind of mentorship that we have is a servant leadership or servant control kind of mentorship that does not work. I'm talking about proper mentorship. Look for someone in your field who has has broken that edge, and then is up there, and then you can then begin to learn from him or go through the process, and then look for the right one. There are so many good ones out there that can assist in terms of taking us through that process to cross that hurdle. So those are two powerful areas. The third thing that we can do as an individual is whatever research we are doing, let's put effort to make it relevant. Let's put some level of quality in it, because you never can tell who will see this work tomorrow. So let's make it very relevant and very useful, because it can be, sometimes I've received calls or mails from people to say, we'll see your work, and therefore, can we collaborate to do something? So it's very, 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 that is one area that I will advise. And then the fourth way for individual, what I would advise for individual to do for research commercialization and all of that, is that as an individual also begin to think through, and I think Dr. Afolabi has spoken about that, think beyond just this academic research that we'll do, where somebody will just collect data, do some analysis, literature review, and go beyond that and learn policy research. Policy research, and when you begin to learn policy research, you begin to put that to use, and over time you become an expert in it. And I can say to you that if when you begin to write from that angle and make your work known, I'm sure sometimes you can even write in a newspaper right? Based on what you are doing, some policy issues, and then as they are coming up, you write or you do a small analysis of them and then write them. So people begin to see you and then make it begin to reach out to you on that angle. So that's for individual. Then for a research institute like maybe Okolog Global or something that is thinking about research for commercialization, this is what I would say. Research unit for anywhere that we want to make use of research for commercialization must have the following units. Number one unit that I think they should have that I put down here is, which we are talking about, data, right? Every research unit should have a data section, because as issues are passing by, you need to keep track of what has been happening, because you can refer to them tomorrow to make informed decision or write some policy listing that somebody will be useful tomorrow. So you have a research unit where events that are happening, political event, or for instance, Boko Haram something has happened somewhere and 30 people are dead, for instance. You have a unit that is taking record of those policies, those events, and then the outcome, what happened. So that tomorrow when you write something of a one page about what you have documented over time, people say, wow, this guy has this kind of information and all of that, or this kind of institution has this kind of information, and then you see yourself being relevant in the other space where you'll be in demand as an institution. So data and keeping data is very critical. The other thing is that when I say data, I'm talking about events, policies that have transpired over the other from the political, economic, or industry level. Keeping track of these things are very useful for us to write some simple things that can be useful. The second thing is what I call skill of the people that are there. What skill do they have, right? Do they have broad skills about and I'm talking about skill not from the perspective of academics, right? I'm talking about something that will be relevant to industry, but that's where you'll be demanded, whether by international organizations, whether by government, or even by industry itself. So they have that required skill. For instance, we were talking about equity, for instance. You have somebody that understands something about equity in your department, or if you don't have, you have a research fellow somewhere that you can reach out to that can be doing those kind of things for you. Okay. The other thing is what I call publication. What are the kind of publication that you drive? Right? Are they purely academics, or they are purely policy based? And our publications are in different form, and they are informed by both skill, they are informed by data itself. So publication can be, you can have what you call, what sometimes some organizations have as what they call working papers or staff working papers, right? But these papers are not purely academic papers. Okay, the other one is what I call policy brief, for instance, or economic update, or maybe if you have a department that is dealing with monitoring agriculture in state by state, then you have something else that is relevant to agricultural policies or something. So the kind of publication that your organization, institution, research unit deal with is so critical, and how they are, and beyond that also, how do you archive these publications, right? And then beyond archiving, how do you disseminate them? This process, this value chain is very, very important in your research commercialization, and then the usefulness of what you are doing, and then tomorrow somebody will see it and then begin to demand for it. So archiving, documentation, and what I call dissemination is very critical. For instance, this seminar is a dissemination process also, right? But beyond this also, how do you disseminate what come out of this? How do you disseminate some of the research output that are industry relevant and all of that? So let me end by saying that as an institution, or even as an individual, we need to keep track of what is happening in industry, what I call industry, emerging issues in industry, emerging issues in government space, emerging issues in the global space. We need to keep track of this and then be able to make informed write-up from them, and then think for a creative way to disseminate them out there, whether they are in demand or not. And over time, you are making yourself known, and I'm sure that very soon you will be demanded, and then they will pay for those several efforts we have made at the back end to be doing all of this document over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Dotun, you have the floor now as regards Dr. Sampson's question. But before you respond to that, I would like you to answer this question also as well. Then the other panelists will also answer. I would like to know if there are any risks or challenges associated with every reliance on data for research commercialization, and how can this risk be mitigated if there are any risks at all? All right, Mr. Dotun, you have the floor now.
Thank you so much. I think on the question Dr. Sampson asked, I think it's been thoroughly discussed by Prof and Doc. I won't attempt to add more to that. I think it's been
All right, sir.
discussed. On risks relating to use of data, I think it also boils down to what we're discussing here, which is the risk of working with the wrong data, right? The risk of working with a data that does not approximate the actual thing that is happening that you're trying to measure. So I think that is a very, very major risk that researchers need to be aware of as they embark on their research, commercialization, and aspiration. Because the truth is that if the data that you're working on or you're using does not approximate or appropriately describe the problem, then you risk coming up with recommendations or solutions that will not, be acceptable by the people that you want them to use that product. Don't forget that commercialization in its technical sense means that you are creating a product from that research endeavor, and that product is adding value. That product is meeting a particular need. So when the data that you collect or that you're working on does not appropriately describe the problem, then you have an issue. So that is always a major risk, which is why any researcher that's embarking on a research commercialization, you want to get your data right. You want to even have a special strategy for checking the appropriateness of your data to whatever research you're embarking on. You want to ensure that the data quality is right, is intact. You want to ensure that the sources, for that data, and you want to ensure that you've also explored, emerging trends in terms of the use of such a data. Now, if you have a GDP data, for example, or you have a data about consumers' perception to a particular product, there can be many iterations that have happened to that data over time on the basis of researchers in different places working on that data and making meaningful sense out of that data. You need to be aware of all those things. So you need to be aware of the emerging trend on the use of that data, the utilization of the data. You need to be mindful of the quality. You need to be mindful of the source. You need to be mindful of the type. You need to be mindful of, I think, buttressing the points that Professor Rega mentioned and Dr. spoke extensively on, is that researchers, we don't really spend time looking at our data. We're more particular about churning out that report and people seeing that I have publications. It's published in an high impact journal and all of that. We're not really interested in understanding data. I think that's the major point that I would say. That's the major risk for me. As far as using data, it is the nature of that data, the quality of that data, the appropriateness of that data. I think that's one major risk. The other risk is ethical concerns that we have spoken about. That's also one major risk that a researcher would need to be mindful of, because that can, in the long run, lead to litigation issues for the researcher or for the commerce. For example, somebody has worked on a data or is the originator of a particular data or information. The person has gotten the proprietary right to that information, and you did not acknowledge that properly. And you've gone ahead to do the entire process, and then you've commercialized it. It's a product is in the market. It could actually lead to very major legal risk. Of course, as a result of the data that you used that you were not mindful of the source, you did not properly reference it, you did not pay attention to ethical issues on that data. So I think those are two major things. Then the other thing also is risk that you also need to, is your storage, security on your data. That I think is also a major risk that you need to be mindful of. When you're in the process of commercialization, at some point you want to be careful about how your ideas are out there. Intellectual theft is happening everywhere. So how are you storing your information? How are you storing the data? So yes, you've used very good data, properly referenced, appropriate for the problem you're looking at. but the security can also be an issue and can, in the end, affect that your commercialization effort. You think of commercialization in the sense that your solution solves a particular need, a unique need. What about if someone steals that information and then the person, maybe before you even got the proprietary right for it, the person went to the market and then used that data? So you also want to be mindful of how you're storing your data. You want to be mindful of how you're keeping that information. So I think those are the major dimensions of risks that I would say that researchers in the quest of commercializing their findings, should be aware of as far as using data is concerned.
All right, thank you very much for that insightful answer. I think you've actually dealt very well with the question. So before we leave the meeting today, I would like the whole house to learn more about what we do at Opolo Global Innovation Limited. So I'll need to invite Ms. Kehinde Ogumiloro to do justice to that, so that when next you are telling people about Opolo, you know exactly what and what we do. All right, thank you. We have just 5 minutes for that.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. So I'll be telling you about, it's not already. So I'll be telling you about what we do in Opolo. So as the name suggests, Opolo is a Yoruba word, which means brain. So which is because we believe most ideas, great and brilliant ideas stem from the brain. So Opolo, like as we can see from the deck, Opolo is building a source. Can everyone see the screen? Okay, let me just continue. Opolo is like a springboard for innovators and accelerators, and we believe like the ideas springs from the brain, and we believe like everyone has the idea, irrespective of your age, from Gen Z to millennial or whoever you are. We believe that there's always an idea, irrespective of your age. So I'll go on with this slide. So about us, like we can see, to offer a springboard for springboards to succeed. So Opolo Global is a social enterprise, is an innovation enabler, incubator, and accelerator. So we believe we provide both incubation and accelerators for accelerator platforms. So incubation for those with the idea, and accelerator for those that have actually scaled up their idea, which is no longer an idea again. So our strategic focus is the DICE, digital innovation, skills, and enterprise. Our key initiatives include the RISE, research, innovation, commercialization, and enterprise, and also talent as a service, or management as a service. If you have an hub that you want us to help you manage, we are there for you. And we also have a pool of talent to actually provide for people. Then we challenge, we've been able to address several challenges, such as poor infrastructure and resources to support institutions and researchers like we have on this call. We know that there's actually this problem of poor infrastructure and resources. So we actually provide that infrastructure, the support system for institutions and researchers. Then we also believe that there's also the inability to convert research outcomes and innovations into commercially viable products. I can tell you of many researchers out here in Nigeria that don't even know how to become rich with their research. And everyone is always complaining, there's no money, there's no money. And I keep telling most researchers I come across, have you ever thought of commercializing this research instead of just putting it in your bookshelf? And most of them are like, how can they commercialize? And I'm like, you need to go back to the shop and look at something that you can actually bring money out from. So lots and lots of this. And our approaches, we have Opolo innovation hubs and centers across the 6 geopolitical zone. We have a system of collaboration with institutions, researchers, and industry to scale this research to enterprise. We also have partnership with regional and global renowned tertiary institutions and innovation enabler. Then we also offer management as a service, as I've mentioned earlier, innovative programs. We have a program team that design lovely programs that I'm sure you would like to be a part of. We also provide investment and funding opportunities for startup researchers, whoever you are. There's always a space for you in Opolo. So some of the impacts made a lot of impacts within a few years. So some of it is we've increased the number of student premium as we have campus-based innovation hubs across 7 universities right now. We've also helped to research innovation and products we are doing in progress. Some of them include the alternative energy solution for electricity provision, herbal medication for asthma, solar hybrid dryer for drying agricultural produce, and a lot more if you ask me. So we have two areas of focus, the industry and business focus. The industry focus is climate change and green economy. We focus on agriculture, health, technology, which is the fintech that everybody knows about right now, craft. Business focus on social impact, innovation, entrepreneurial service. So like I said earlier, irrespective of your age, irrespective of your background, there's always a space for follow both researchers, both my fellow Gen Zers, and everyone. There's always a space for follow. So don't tell me that you don't have an idea. Like I told a friend this morning, there's always an idea in you. It's just you've not thought of it. So once you have the idea, Opolo is the next place for you to come, and will make you a rich person out of this your idea. So we have hubs spread across Nigeria. Currently, we have 7 hubs in progress. We have one in OAU, we have one in Uni Osun, we have one in University of Ibadan, we have BUK, we have ATBU, we have River State University, and Uniben. Then currently, we also, by the end of this year, we intend to also cover universities such as UNN in Nsukka. We intend to cover Lorin, Puta, and several other schools. So like I said, we believe like most of these ideas are actually in the university campus, and we are ready to actually make something out of it. Aside from campus-based innovation hubs, we also believe like it's not only in campuses hubs exist. What about people in the rural area, people in remote area? We believe that there are talents there, which we've also been able to cover by having 2 rural hubs, one in Ifetedo and the other in Otuayegbaju, all in Osun State, because we believe that there is an idea everywhere, and we tend to spread our globe before the year runs out. So we believe in the quadruple helix approach in Opolo, the academia, the government, the industry, as well as the community and high network individuals. Then we have an ecosystem of membership that include AfriLab, ISN Hubs, FinTech Association of Nigeria, DSN, Climate Action Network, Global National Nations, Global Compact, and many more. Then we have a team of corporate board that include our chairman and visionary, Dr. Segun Aina, OFR, who is the real Opolo, and we have Nke Bugwaku, we have Mary Aino, Amina Tukutapa, Patrick Akinwuto, EcoBank, Dr. Femi Oyewonuga, Akim Akinwa, and several others. And our advisory council is made up of people from across different walks of life, both the industry and tell me anything, and there's always someone from Opolo there for you. And our management team, some of them are on the call. We have our head of social impact, Mr. Femi Kalejaye. We have Mr. Mayowa Ayode, the Chief Investment and Finance Officer, Dr. Shukura Bello, Dr. Samson Simon, the brain behind today's program. We have Dr. Rashid Adebi, our comms expert. We have Mr. Deji Ajani, the head of social projects. We have our office manager. We have everyone. So thank you. Like I'll say, Opolo, it's a Yoruba word for brain, and English is brain. Thank you for having us today. Thank you for being a part. And actually, tomorrow for the Gen Zers that are here, we also have a Twitter space that will be addressing for people that want to diversify into the fintech. And people ask me every day, I want to go into tech, how do I do it? So this webinar tomorrow will actually, the Twitter space tomorrow will actually address that. So if you know you're interested, just reach out to us on all our social media platform. You can follow us on Instagram at Opolo Global. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, just name anything, and we are there. And we also have our mailing list where you can get information of what we are doing at Opolo. Thank you so much, everyone, for today. It's been a pleasure having you guys around. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Kehinde Ogumiloro. Now the visitors we have here today, they will know what we do here. Sorry. Sorry, I'm having some technical issues here. can't hear myself.
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I'm very sorry for that brief interruption. So now we know more about what we do here, and we can easily tell people what Opolo is all about. So I would like to invite Dr. Samson Simon to give us a closing remark and a brief vote of thanks to the presenter and the panelists. Actually, Mr. Adedotun said he will need to join another meeting by 12 p.m. So I'm sure he must have exited the meeting. But I think we still have the other panelists here. Dr. Samson Simon, please help us thank them and give us the closing remark. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Joy. Our dear presenter, Dr. Afolabi Oluwakere, we really appreciate your coming. Professor Perakuna Erega Bright, thank you so much for creating time to come and attend this webinar. We are extremely grateful. We value relationship. At Apollo, we value partners, and your sacrifices will not be taken for granted. We have been enlightened, and I'm confident that what we have learned here will go a long way in helping us, each person here, and even as an organization. Apollo will be better for it. You have sown a seed that I believe will germinate to be something that you'll be proud of. So we are once again extremely grateful, and we look forward to more of this, doing a lot of great things together. And we'll be happy if you can co-opt us into some of the things you're doing, particularly around data and the commercialization of research. And we believe that this partnership is just beginning, and that at the end of the day, we have greater things being achieved. Thank you so much for your time once again, and thank you everybody for coming, and God bless you. Thank you.
All right, before we go, I would like us all to share our video. Let us all show our faces so that we can just get a picture of the participants here today. Let's do that. Screen. Sorry, oh. I've not taken it. Just hold on for a minute. Everybody to be visible. They should remove him from the spotlight. Okay. Who will do that? Okay, okay, okay. All right. Can we all say cheese? Done. All right, thank you very much. It's been wonderful having you all here. It's actually been a very wonderful session. We've learned a lot, no doubt about that. So we actually thank our panelists, our participants. We thank you for your contribution. We thank you for staying with us for these 2 hours plus that we've spent here. And I know that all what we've learned will not just go away like that. Thank you very much, Professor Erega. Thank you very much, Dr. Oluwakere. Thank you very much, though he's absent now. Thank you very much, Mr. Saying go. Thank you all and have a wonderful day. Thank you.